Karoline Leavitt, alongside her husband Nicholas Riccio, was denied service at their favorite restaurant. 10 minutes later, the restaurant collapsed. Before we dive into the details, make sure to comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with the latest stories. The engine of the Cadillac Escalade purred gently as Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, sat in the back seat, her eyes focused on her phone, checking work emails. Her husband, Nicholas Riccio, a seasoned real estate developer, glanced over at her, his deep voice breaking the silence. "Put the phone down. Tonight's ours," he said. Karoline gave a faint smile but nodded, still fully focused. Her sharp gaze revealed her ability to manage the Trump administration's media strategies, despite the distraction. They were heading to the Liberty Bistro, their favorite spot in Manhattan, once a cozy escape that seemed to offer a place for people to put aside their differences and enjoy a rare moment of peace. Nicholas, with his silver-streaked hair and calm demeanor, took her hand. "I miss the steak here," he said, trying to pull her away from the grip of work. Karoline sighed. "I just want one peaceful night." The car slowed as they neared the flickering neon glow of the Liberty Bistro in the distance, a luxurious place that always made them feel welcomed. Karoline stepped out of the Cadillac Escalade, her heels clicking on the Manhattan sidewalk, as she adjusted her elegant coat. Nicholas followed, sleeves slightly rolled, exuding the quiet confidence of a man used to high-stakes deals. Karoline gripped his hand, taking a deep breath. "I hope no one recognizes me tonight." They walked into the Liberty Bistro, the rich scent of herbs from the kitchen mixing with the soft murmurs of diners. The elegant interior unfolded before them, warm, golden light spilling from sconces, reflecting off polished tables that had once offered a rare moment of peace. But as they approached the hostess stand, Ethan Caldwell, the manager, appeared, a shadow across their memories. Around 40, he wore a crisp gray suit, his polite smile barely masking the tension of someone who had publicly opposed the Trump administration on social media. "Mrs. Leavitt, Mr. Riccio," he began, his voice soft yet tinged with unease, as if concealing a premeditated decision. "I'm very sorry to inform you that we can't serve you tonight." Karoline halted before the stand, her brows arching as her piercing gaze flared with disbelief. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice sharp and commanding, like that of a press secretary facing down hostile questions. As Ethan repeated the refusal, Karoline's laughter came out cold, biting, as if the absurdity of the situation had finally hit her. "Inclusion? You call kicking us out inclusion?" She stepped closer, her eyes locking on Ethan. "This is blatant discrimination, and you know it. I'm not here as press secretary, I'm here to have dinner with my husband. So, what's the problem?" Nicholas interjected, his voice low but authoritative. "Mr. Caldwell, we're not strangers here. I've eaten at this place long before you managed it. We've never caused any trouble or disturbed anyone. What's going on?" He tilted his head, sizing up the situation. Ethan took a breath, keeping his tone steady, though his hands trembled as they brushed against the leather reservation book. "Mr. Riccio, I deeply respect you both as longtime customers, but after recent backlash on social media regarding Mrs. Leavitt's posts on immigration and DEI, a group of patrons threatened to boycott us if we continued serving you. We can't afford to lose them," Karoline interrupted, her voice sharp. "You'd rather ditch loyal customers like us? We've been here countless times. You think we're a threat just because of my job?" She pulled her phone from her purse, quickly swiping through the screen with determination. "You want to talk about social media? Fine. I'll show the world what your idea of inclusion really looks like." Nicholas raised a hand to stop her, his eyes still locked on Ethan. "Karoline, calm down. Let me handle this," he said, turning to Ethan. His voice was low but firm. "I almost invested in this place a few years ago. Great space, prime location. But I pulled out for another project. Now I see I dodged a bullet with management like this." Ethan's polite smile faltered, but he kept his composure. "Mr. Riccio, it's not personal. We're just trying to avoid trouble. If you'd use the private dining room, we'd be happy to set it up discreetly. No fuss. Private dining? Karoline's voice erupted with frustration. I don't need your charity. We're not criminals who need to hide in a corner. I'm a paying customer, and I have every right to sit at my table like anyone else here, she pointed. At the diners, some of whom were now turning to look, whispering, and others raising their phones to record. Ethan stepped back, still trying to remain calm. Mrs. Leavitt, I understand how you feel, but I can't do anything different. This is for the greater good of the restaurant and its customers. I hope you understand. Understand? Nicholas echoed, his tone dropping to a warning. You think we'll just walk away after this insult? You're choosing the wrong side, Mr. Caldwell, and I guarantee you'll face the consequences. He gripped Karoline's hand tighter, his gaze unwavering on Ethan. Karoline turned to her husband, then back to Ethan, her eyes burning. We're not going anywhere, Nick. Not until they realize they can't treat us like this without repercussions. She raised her phone, starting a live stream. Her voice rang out clearly. Hey everyone, I'm Karoline Leavitt. Right now at Liberty Bistro, my husband and I were just refused service because of my political views. The restaurant buzzed. A man at a nearby table stood clapping. That's right, Karoline. Don't let them bully you. But another woman, dressed in an expensive sweater, muttered to her friend, I knew she'd make a scene. Ethan stood frozen, his polite smile fading as the situation spiraled out of control. The light from the Liberty Bistro's crystal chandelier flickered across Karoline's phone screen as she held it at eye level, the live stream's viewership growing by the second. This is the truth about the freedom they preach, she said, her voice cutting. They're kicking me and my husband out of this restaurant just because I work for the Trump administration. This isn't inclusion. It's hypocrisy. Nicholas stood. Beside her, arms crossed, his cold stare locked on Ethan as if he were an adversary in a boardroom. The diners started reacting. A middle-aged man in a gray suit rose from a nearby table, clapping loudly. Karoline's right. This is America. No one gets to refuse her. His applause echoed through the room and others nodded in agreement. But in a far corner, a young woman in a pricey cashmere sweater whispered to her friend, loud enough to be heard. She's just fishing for attention. I came here for dinner, not political drama. Her friend nodded, filming with a glint of amusement in her eyes. Ethan Caldwell stood behind the hostess stand, his hands gripping the reservation book, as he tried to remain professional, though his face betrayed stress. Mrs. Leavitt, he said, his voice soft but quivering at the end. I don't want this to turn into a public fight. We're just trying to keep the peace for all our customers. If you'd lower the phone, we could talk privately. Privately? Karoline scoffed, eyes still fixed on the live stream. You want me to be quiet so you can pretend this didn't happen? No way, Mr. Caldwell. The world needs to see this. She swung the phone toward Ethan, the camera's light hitting his face, causing him to blink rapidly. You just said this is an inclusive space, but you're kicking us out because some customers don't like my views. Who are you choosing? Mr. Caldwell? Paying customers like us or the mob threatening to boycott you on Twitter? Nicholas stepped forward, resting a hand on Karoline's shoulder as he studied her, though his voice remained low as he faced Ethan. You know, I liked this place enough to consider investing in it years ago. Great vibe, killer menu. I thought it was a Manhattan gem, but I backed out for another project. Now I see I was right, not because of business, but because of management like you. He tilted his head, his eyes piercing. You think refusing us saves your reputation? You're wrong. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to regain composure. Mr. Riccio, I respect you both immensely, but we have to consider all of our customers' feelings, not just yours. A large group contacted us yesterday saying they'd never come back if Mrs. Leavitt showed up. We can't afford to lose them. He glanced around the room, seeking support from the diners, but met only curious or annoyed expressions. The room seemed to split further. An older man near the bar stood, pointing at Ethan. I've known Karoline since her congressional run. She's a loyal customer. I signed a deal with her at table 14, right there. You've got no right to kick them out. His voice boomed, sparking cheers from others. But across the room, a middle-aged woman in a business suit rose, her tone sharp. I support this decision. We don't want people like her here. She stands for discrimination, and I came to relax, not face politics. Karoline swung the phone toward the woman, her voice tightening. You just called me discriminatory. What about you cheering for kicking me out? What's that if not discriminating against me for my job? Karoline's voice rang out, and the live stream exploded with comments. Stand with Karoline clashing with Trump puppet as thousands tuned in. Nicholas shook his head, muttering to his wife, See, they can't win with reason, so they pull this. The divide spread fast. A young waitress, her hair tied high, quietly approached Karoline and whispered, Miss Leavitt, I'm sorry, I don't agree with this, but Mr. Caldwell said we'd lose our jobs if we pushed back. Karoline nodded, her gaze softening briefly. Thanks. You don't need to apologize. I know who's calling the shots here. She turned back to Ethan, her voice firm. Hear that? Even your staff doesn't back you. Ethan retreated a step, his hands shaking as he tried to keep his tone even. I don't have a choice, Mrs. Leavitt. This is for the restaurant's good. If you'd leave, we could avoid bigger trouble. His words were cut off as another man in a leather jacket stood from a corner table shouting, Bigger trouble? You just made it? I'm never coming back here after this. He yanked his coat and stormed out, dragging a few others with him. The hashtag #Karoline Expelled popped up on diners' phones, spreading from those filming on site. A woman near the bar whispered to her friend, She's turning this into a political campaign, but Caldwell messed up by escalating it. Nicholas overheard and turned to Karoline. See? They're digging their own grave. Just one more push. Karoline nodded, her eyes blazing as she spoke into the live stream. This isn't just about me and my husband. It's about them thinking they can exclude anyone who doesn't fit their ideology. But I won't let them win. She lowered the phone slightly, staring straight at Ethan. You've got 1 minute to change your mind, Mr. Caldwell. Or I promise. You'll regret it. Ethan stood still, his face pale, his polite smile gone entirely. Diners began rising, some to back Karoline, some to protest, and others just to flee from the battlefield this place had become. The Liberty Bistro, once a symbol of elegance, was cracking from within, and Karoline and Nicholas had no intention of stopping. The buzz in the Liberty Bistro quieted as Karoline Leavitt lowered her phone slightly. Her gaze shifted from Ethan Caldwell to sweep the room, the white linen tables, the soft chandelier glow, the faint herb scent from the kitchen. All suddenly stirred memories she couldn't ignore. She gripped Nicholas Riccio's hand tighter, her voice dropping, no longer for the live stream but almost to herself. You know, Nick, I can't believe we're standing here, treated like this. Nicholas turned to her, his eyes softening amid his anger. I know, Karoline, I'm thinking about it too. He glanced around, pointing to table 14 near the window where Manhattan streetlights filtered through the glass, casting faint streaks. Remember our first time eating here after your primary, Ray? When? I said. This girl's going places. Karoline gave a faint smile, the memory flooding back like a slow reel. Yeah, we ordered steak. You called it a reward for your little warrior. She turned to Ethan, her tone hardening. You know, Mr. Caldwell, that night your staff brought out a bottle of red wine and said it was on the house to celebrate me. They clapped when we raised our glasses. Now what? You're kicking us out like we're enemies? Ethan stood silent behind the stand, his hands clutching the reservation book, not answering right away. He dipped his head slightly as if searching for an explanation, but his eyes dodged Karoline's. Karoline pressed on. Your staff, Mr. Caldwell, made this place special. Now you want to erase that because of some social media threats? Diners started listening, some nodding in empathy, others whispering among themselves. Karoline looked back at Ethan. Don't you see, Mr. Caldwell? This isn't just a restaurant to us, it's where we built milestones, wins, love, family. And now you want to turn it into what? A political battleground? She raised her phone again, facing the live stream. Everyone watching, this was our home, but now they say we're not welcome just because I work for someone a few people don't like. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Mrs. Leavitt, I'm sorry if this hurts you, but we have to think of the greater good. Those memories matter, but we can't ignore other customers' feelings. His voice stayed polite, but tension showed as he glanced at the diners, some already rising to leave. Nicholas shook his head, his gaze darkening. Greater good? You know, I once thought this place was worth investing in because of its vibe. Warmth, welcome. I considered putting money here, but I pulled out for another project. Now I'm glad. If I'd known it'd end up with someone like you, ready to sell out loyal customers over a few threats, I'd never have stepped foot in here. Nicholas's words cut through the tense air, and Karoline nodded, her eyes blazing as she turned to her husband. You're right, Nick. We've given them too much time, money, loyalty, and this is how they repay us. She faced Ethan, her voice a declaration of war. You think refusing us saves this place? You're wrong. You just lost the most valuable thing it had. Trust. The room stirred again. The leather-jacketed man who'd left returned from the door, shouting, I'm with her. I've eaten here 10 years, but after tonight, I'm done with this place. A few others nodded, standing and scraping chairs as they prepared to leave. Across the room, the progressive group stayed put, murmuring, but their eyes weren't as certain anymore. Karoline met Nicholas's gaze in a silent moment. We don't need this place anymore, Nick, she said, her voice low but firm. But I won't let them forget this. She raised her phone one last time, speaking into the live stream. This is proof they chose fear over loyalty, but we won't bow. The Liberty Bistro's elegance trembled with scraping chairs, sharp whispers, and the firm steps of diners rising. Karoline Leavitt lowered her phone after her final live stream statement. Her eyes locked on Ethan Caldwell, still behind the stand, hands gripping the reservation book. Nicholas Riccio, standing beside his wife, tilted his head slightly, his voice low but cutting. Hear that, Mr. Caldwell? That's the sound of loyalty you just threw away. He pointed at the splitting crowd, his gaze fixed on Ethan's paling face. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to hold his professional front, though his voice wavered. Mrs. Leavitt, Mr. Riccio, I'm sorry if this caused a misunderstanding. We don't want to lose you, but I have to think of the restaurant's greater good. If you'd take the private room, we'd serve you no charge as an apology. He forced a smile, his hands trembling as he adjusted his stance. Karoline let out a cold laugh, the sound ringing through the tense air. Private room? You think I'll hide in a corner like a criminal just to save your face? No way, Mr. Caldwell. We don't need your handouts. She turned to Nicholas, her eyes blazing. See, Nick. They think they can buy us off with a free meal after humiliating us in front of everyone. Nicholas nodded, his gaze darkening as he eyed Ethan. You just made a bad calculation, Mr. Caldwell. I once thought this place was worth investing in because of its special vibe, warmth, and hospitality. But now I see you're willing to sell it all out over a few narrow-minded customers' threats. You don't deserve this place. Under Nicholas's rebuke, the restaurant's pressure erupted. The leather-jacketed man who'd vowed to leave returned. From the door, his voice thundering. I've spent thousands here over 10 years, but after tonight, I'm done with this place. He yanked his sleeve, stormed out, dragging 2 table-mates along. The glass door slammed shut like a firm period. In the far corner, the young waitress who'd whispered to Karoline quietly untied her apron, her hand shaking as she set it on the bar. She stepped closer to Ethan, her voice quiet but firm. Mr. Caldwell, I quit. I can't work at a place that treats customers like this. Mrs. Leavitt and Mr. Riccio have always been kind to us. Don't you see that? Ethan turned to her, his eyes wide. Lisa, don't do this. We need you. But Lisa shook her head, stepping out from behind the counter. Her gaze flicked to Karoline like an apology. The reaction spread fast. The head chef, a tall man named Marco, who'd once made mousse for Nicholas and Karoline during their engagement, emerged from the kitchen door, his apron slung over his shoulder. He paused, scanned the restaurant, then shouted, I'm done. 15 years here, and I've never seen such stupid management. refusing loyal customers over some online noise. I'm not part of this. He tossed his apron to the floor, stormed out the back door, leaving Ethan with a ghostly pale face. The diner split sharper. The man in the gray suit stood again, pointing at Ethan. You just lost your best chef. I signed a deal with Karoline here last year. She's the best customer this place ever had. What do you think you're doing? He yanked his phone from his pocket, typing fast. I'll let the world know. Boycott Liberty Bistro. Everyone across the room shifted. The progressive group stayed, seated, but their confidence wavered. The woman in the cashmere sweater whispered to her friend, She's overreacting. Sure, but I didn't expect the staff to flip like this. Maybe Caldwell screwed up. Her friend nodded, sneaking a glance at Karoline, her earlier arrogance fading. A middle-aged woman in a business suit rose, her voice sharp. I still back Mr. Caldwell. We don't want Trump politics here, but you need to handle this better than this. Karoline turned to Nicholas, her voice low but resolute. See, Nick? They're destroying themselves. Staff quitting, customers leaving, all because he picked the wrong side. She raised her phone, checking the live stream. Tens of thousands were watching, comments flooding in. Stand with Karoline, mixed with liberal hypocrisy. She spoke into the camera. See this, everyone. This is the cost of hate. They're not just kicking us out, they're kicking out the people who built this place. Nicholas nodded, his gaze sweeping Ethan. Mr. Caldwell, you've got one last shot to fix this, but I'm guessing you won't. You're too scared of the online mob to see what's right in front of you. He pointed at Marco leaving, Lisa near the door, and the diners scraping chairs to leave. Ethan stepped forward, his voice trembling but still clinging to politeness. Mr. Riccio, Mrs. Leavitt, I don't want to lose staff or customers, but I can't do otherwise. If I serve you, we'll lose more. I hope you'll understand and leave to avoid bigger trouble. He glanced around, seeking support, but found only angry or blank faces. Karoline shook her head, eyes blazing. Understand. You just lost your chef, your staff, your customers, and you think we're the problem? No, Mr. Caldwell. You did this. To yourself. She turned to Nicholas. I don't want to be here another second, Nick, but I'll make sure they remember tonight forever. More diners started leaving. An older couple near the window stood, the husband shouting, We don't spend money at a place that discriminates like this. They walked out, pulling a few others along. Boycott Liberty Bistro spread fast on the remaining diners' phones, shared by those still inside. A young man near the bar whispered to his friend, Caldwell's toast. He doesn't know who he just messed with. The Liberty Bistro's air grew stifling, filled with hurried footsteps and sharp whispers from the lingering diners. Karoline Leavitt stood at the chaos center, phone still in hand, eyes burning as she gave Ethan Caldwell one last look. Nicholas Riccio, beside his wife, gripped her hand tighter, his cold gaze sweeping the manager's pale face as he struggled to stay composed. The glass door slamming from departing customers rang like a drumbeat, signaling the collapse of this once luxurious icon. Karoline took a deep breath, her voice dropping but still sharp as she turned to Nicholas. I'm done, Nick. We don't need another second here. She faced Ethan, her stare like a dagger. Hear that, Mr. Caldwell? We're leaving, not because you won, but because we won't waste more time on a restaurant that betrayed us. She raised her phone one last time, speaking into the live stream with tens of thousands watching. This is our final moment at the Liberty Bistro. They chose fear over loyalty, and we're choosing to leave with our dignity. Nicholas nodded, his eyes darkening as he cut in. Mr. Caldwell, you thought refusing us would save this place? You're wrong. You just lost what gave it soul. The customers, the staff, the values you once bragged about. He pointed to the back door where Marco had left, then to the bar where Lisa had ditched her apron. See? They're not leaving because of us, they're leaving because of you. Ethan took a step forward, hands shaking as he tried to keep his tone steady. Mr. Riccio, Mrs. Leavitt, I'm so sorry it's come to this. I didn't want to lose you. Or anyone, but I had no choice. If I served you, we'd lose a bigger group of customers. I'm just trying to protect the restaurant. He glanced around, hoping for agreement from the remaining diners, but saw only anger or indifference. Karoline scoffed, the sound cutting through the tense air. Protect the restaurant? You just lost your head chef, your staff, dozens of customers, and you think that's protecting? No, Mr. Caldwell, you just destroyed it yourself. She turned. To Nicholas, voice low but firm. Let's go, honey, we deserve better than this. But before they could turn away, Karoline paused, her eyes locking onto Ethan. You know, Mr. Caldwell, I once thought this place was home. We celebrated wins here, he proposed to me here. We shared our best moments here. But what have you turned it into? A place where loyalty means nothing. She raised her phone again, speaking into the live stream. Everyone watching hears the lesson. When you choose fear over what's right, you lose everything. And Mr. Caldwell, you just started something you can't stop. Nicholas rested a hand on her shoulder, his voice deep and commanding. She's right. I once thought this place was worth investing in because of its vibe, warmth, and hospitality. But now I see it's just an empty shell under you. You want to keep a small group of customers over the ones who built this place? Fine. See where it takes you. The remaining diners reacted harder. The man in the gray suit stood holding up his phone. I just posted boycott Liberty Bistro everywhere, Mr. Caldwell. You just shot yourself in the foot. He marched to the door, dragging a few others along. Their shoes echoed on the wood like a rhythm of abandonment. An older couple near the window rose too, the wife shouting, "We don't spend money at a discriminatory place like this. Goodbye." They left their table, untouched across the room. The progressive group stayed put, but their confidence had evaporated. The woman in the cashmere sweater whispered to her friend, "She's over the top, sure, but Caldwell botched this bad. I don't know if I want to stay." Her friend nodded, sneaking a glance at Karoline and Nicholas, doubt flickering in her eyes. A middle-aged woman in a business suit stood, her voice sharp but frail. "I still back Mr. Caldwell, but you need to control this better. It's spiraling out of hand." Karoline turned to Nicholas, their eyes meeting in a silent moment. "We don't need them to prove anything anymore, Nick," she said, her voice steady. "They've made it clear themselves." She faced Ethan one last time, her tone a declaration of war. "Mr. Caldwell, here's my final statement. You picked the wrong side, and you'll see the fallout. We're leaving, but you won't escape what you've caused." Nicholas gripped her hand, his gaze firm as he told Ethan, "You want to protect the restaurant? You just wrecked it. I once thought this was a Manhattan gem, but now I see it's just ashes under you. Goodbye, Mr. Caldwell." He turned to Karoline, voice soft. "Let's go, babe. We'll find somewhere worthier." They started walking out, Karoline's heels clicking on the wood, blending with Nicholas's leather shoes. The remaining diners split. Some clapped in support, some jeered in protest, but most just watched silently, their eyes mixed with admiration and confusion. The leather-jacketed man near the door shouted, "Good luck, Karoline. Don't let them drag you down." A few others nodded, raising phones to film their exit. Karoline paused at the door, turning back for one last look at Ethan. She said nothing, just gave a faint smile, proud and defiant. She raised her phone, ending the live stream with her final words. "Thanks for watching, everyone. This is how we leave, not as losers, but as winners. Remember tonight, because they never will." The screen went dark, but her words hung in the air. Ethan stood behind the counter, hands limp, face white as paper. He looked around, seeing only empty tables, departed staff, and a few diners left whispering among themselves. The Liberty Bistro, once a hub of lavish feasts, was now a hollow shell. Karoline and Nicholas had walked out with their final statement, leaving behind a wreckage Ethan couldn't salvage. The glass door of the Liberty Bistro closed behind Karoline Leavitt and Nicholas Riccio, the sound ringing like a full stop amid the chaos inside. Outside, Manhattan streetlights lit their figures, Karoline with her proud heels, Nicholas with his calm, powerful presence. They walked to the Cadillac Escalade, not looking back, leaving a restaurant crumbling from within. But just 10 minutes later, the Liberty Bistro, once an icon of luxury, began to collapse. Not in bricks and mortar, but in an irreparable loss of trust, reputation, and clientele. Inside, Ethan Caldwell stood behind the hostess stand, hands dangling, face white as paper. The scrape of chairs and rush of footsteps from departing diners still echoed, but now the space grew quiet, a heavy silence signaling the end. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to summon his professional voice. "Everyone, please stay calm. We'll get through this, it's just a small misunderstanding." But his words fell into the void, unanswered, unbelieved. Loyal diners started leaving in droves. The man in the gray suit who'd signed a deal with Karoline stood one last time, pointing at Ethan. "You just lost everything, Mr. Caldwell. I've spent tens of thousands here, but after tonight, I'm done." He grabbed his coat, stormed out, pulling 3 tablemates along. An older couple near the window rose too, the husband yelling, "We don't support a discriminatory place like this, goodbye." They left, leaving their table intact, red wine sloshing like blood on the white. In a far corner, the progressive group, once Ethan's backers, started wavering. The woman in the cashmere sweater whispered to her friend, "I thought Caldwell was right to keep Trump politics out, but he handled this so badly. Look, the place is empty." Her friend nodded, glancing at the bar where Lisa had ditched her apron, and left. "I don't want to stay," she said, standing and pulling her friend along. They walked out, eyes tinged with shame as they passed empty tables. The loss didn't stop at customers. Marco, the head chef, had exited through the back, but his decision's echoes lingered. A bartender who'd quietly watched from the bar approached Ethan, his voice shaky. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm quitting too. I can't work where loyal customers get treated like that." He untied his apron, tossed it on the counter, and turned away. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but only a choked sound came out, his hands clenching into fists. Boycott Liberty Bistro exploded online, not just from diners inside, but from thousands who'd seen Karoline's live stream. A young man near the bar, still seated with his friend, held up his phone. "Look, this hashtag's trending worldwide, over 1 million mentions in 10 minutes. His friend shook his head. "Caldwell's finished. He doesn't know who he messed with." They stood and left without looking back, abandoning half-drunk beers on the table. The media pounced. A New York Post alert popped up on remaining diner phones. White House press secretary denied involvement at Manhattan restaurant. Customers and staff abandoned in droves. Fox News and CNN jumped in. Headlines scrolling. "Discrimination scandal rocks the Liberty Bistro." A major sponsor who'd held quarterly events here emailed that night, "We're pulling all contracts." "We don't support hypocrisy." Ethan got the alert from his assistant via phone, his face paling as he read it. Ethan stepped into the center of the restaurant, his voice trembling but still clinging to politeness. "Everyone, please stay. We'll fix this, I promise. We're still a restaurant that welcomes all." But his words were cut off as a middle-aged customer, who'd sat quietly until now, stood, his voice harsh. "Welcomes all? You just kicked out a couple over her job. I don't trust you anymore." He walked out, pulling a few others along, leaving Ethan alone amid empty tables. In those 10 short minutes, the Liberty Bistro lost nearly all its customers. Tables once alive with laughter now held only rumpled linens and abandoned glasses. The remaining staff, a few servers and kitchen workers, began whispering among themselves, their eyes flickering between fear and anger. An older server approached Ethan, his voice low but firm. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm staying because I need the money, but I don't support this. You were wrong to kick them out." Ethan turned to him, eyes flashing. "I had no choice. If I served them, we'd lose that other group. They're a big revenue stream." But the server shook his head. "Don't you see? You just lost both. People like Mrs. Leavitt and people like us who've worked here for years." He turned away, leaving Ethan standing still, hands trembling as he surveyed the empty restaurant. The collapse of the Liberty Bistro wasn't just a material loss. It was a symbol of the failure of the progressive ideology Ethan had stood for. He preached inclusion, but excluded those who didn't fit the views of the small customer group he chose to protect. Now, the restaurant, once a place of lavish feasts, was just a hollow shell, stripped of customers, credibility, and reputation. A young man near the door before leaving turned back and shouted, "Mr. Caldwell, you just killed this place yourself. Good luck cleaning up the wreckage." Ethan stood in the middle of the restaurant, the chandelier's light casting shadows on his face, highlighting red-rimmed eyes and tightly pressed lips. He looked around, seeing only empty chairs, abandoned wine glasses, and the last staff quietly slipping away. His phone buzzed incessantly, canceled reservations, press calls, staff quitting, but he didn't pick up. He whispered, his voice breaking, "I just wanted to protect the restaurant," but his words dissolved into the air, unheard, uncared for. The Cadillac Escalade glided smoothly through Manhattan streets, streetlights streaking past the windows, as Karoline Leavitt and Nicholas Riccio sat in the back, leaving the Liberty Bistro's wreckage behind. Karoline rested her head on her husband's shoulder, her eyes still fierce but now tinged with relief. "You know, Nick," she said, voice low, but steady, "I don't regret walking away. They didn't deserve us." Nicholas smiled, squeezing her hand tighter. "I agree, Karoline, but I'm starving. We need a new spot for dinner." Karoline chuckled softly, her first laugh of the night free of sarcasm. "All right, you pick, but this time it's got to be a place that values us." Nicholas nodded, pulling out his phone and typing a quick message. "Patriot Grill," he said, eyes lighting up. "Frank, the owner there, texted me earlier. He says there's always a table for our family." Karoline nodded. "Sounds good. Let's go." The car turned onto a quieter street, pulling up to Patriot Grill, a smaller place than the Liberty Bistro, but cozy, with warm golden light spilling from lanterns hung outside. As Karoline and Nicholas stepped out, the front door swung open, and Frank, an older man with silver hair and a wide grin, rushed out to greet them. "Karoline, Nicholas," he bellowed, voice booming. "Welcome to my house. I just saw your live stream. The whole world's talking about that Liberty Bistro mess. Come in, come in." They stepped inside. Patriot Grill's warmth enveloped them, the rich scent of grilled meat wafting from the kitchen, lively chatter from diners within, and friendly glances from the staff. Frank led them to a table near the fireplace, clapping Nicholas on the shoulder. "I told you ages ago, Liberty Bistro wasn't worth your investment. Now they've ruined themselves, and you and this amazing lady are here with us." Nicholas laughed. "Frank, you were right. This is home." Karoline sat, looking around. No lavish chandeliers or pristine white linens like the Liberty Bistro, but the genuine vibe here eased her. She pulled out her phone, checking the ended live stream, and saw a flood of notifications. "I Stand with Karoline" trending globally at #1, outpacing "Boycott Liberty Bistro." She smiled, turning to Nicholas. "Look at this. The world's on our side. They can't beat us." Frank returned with 2 glasses of red wine, setting them down with a wink. "A welcome gift from me. I told the staff to whip up special steaks for you two. No one does it better than me. Not even that Liberty Bistro bunch." Nicholas raised his glass, clinking it lightly against Karoline's. "Thanks, Frank. This is what we need. A place that knows the value of loyalty." Karoline nodded, sipping her wine. "Exactly. We don't need fake places like Liberty Bistro." As they chatted, news of the Liberty Bistro's collapse spread. Karoline's phone buzzed with a New York Post alert. "Liberty Bistro temporarily closes after denying white. House press secretary, customers and staff flee in droves." She read it aloud to Nicholas, eyes gleaming. "Just 10 minutes after we left, they fell apart. Ethan Caldwell thought he could win, but he was wrong." Nicholas nodded, a hint of triumph in his gaze. "I told him he picked the wrong side. I once thought that place was Manhattan's gem, but now it's just ashes, and here we are, stronger than ever." He turned to Frank. "Heard anything from your industry pals yet?" Frank laughed heartily. "Oh, plenty. Liberty Bistro's big clients are canceling contracts, staff quitting in waves. Rumor is they'll shut down for good within 48 hours. No saving it. Caroline raised her phone again, starting a new live stream, her voice clear. Hey everyone, Karoline Leavitt here at Patriot Grill with my husband Nicholas. We just left the Liberty Bistro where they refused us over my political views. But look, they couldn't beat us. We're here, welcomed by people who value loyalty and truth. Liberty Bistros collapsed, but we haven't. She panned the camera to Nicholas and Frank, both smiling, raising their glasses. Diners at Patriot Grill began clapping, a few shouting, "Way to go, Caroline." An older man at a nearby table stood, raising his beer. "You did great. Don't let those progressives drag you down." The lively buzz filled the restaurant, a stark contrast to the deathly silence at Liberty Bistro. Caroline smiled, ended the live stream, and turned to Nicholas. "See, Nick, this is real victory. Not just walking away, but finding where we belong." Nicholas took her hand, his gaze warm but firm. "You're right. They thought they could silence us, but they don't know who we are. Patriot Grill isn't just a restaurant. It's proof loyalty still matters." He sipped his wine, then grinned. "And Frank's steak beats Liberty Bistro's hands down." Frank returned with 2 sizzling steak plates, setting them down with a shrug. "Of course it does. I don't kick out loyal customers over some online chatter. Eat up, you two. Tonight's yours." Caroline and Nicholas laughed, digging in. The grilled aroma washed away the night's tension as they ate. Caroline looked at Nicholas, her voice soft. "We won, honey. Not just because they lost, but because we didn't bow." Nicholas nodded, eyes shining. "Right, Caroline. This is home, and no one can take it from us." Patriot Grill, with its warmth and hospitality, became their victory symbol, a place where loyalty paid off, in stark contrast to the wreckage Liberty Bistro left behind. The soft golden glow from Patriot Grill's fireplace danced across the table as Karoline Leavitt and Nicholas Riccio sat facing each other, their steak plates half empty. The lively chatter of surrounding diners blended with the rich scent of grilled meat, crafting a warm vibe, worlds apart from the cold they'd left at Liberty Bistro. Caroline set her fork down, looking at Nicholas, her eyes bright with pride mixed with a touch of reflection. "You know, Nick, tonight wasn't just dinner. It was a win and a lesson." Nicholas nodded, sipping his red wine, his voice deep and warm. "You're right, Caroline. They thought they could shut us up, but they were wrong. Liberty Bistro fell because they chose fear over loyalty, and we're stronger than ever." He set his glass down, taking her hand across the table, his gaze steady. "What's the lesson here? When you betray those who trusted you, you lose everything." Caroline smiled, the smile of someone who'd weathered a storm unbroken. "Exactly. Ethan Caldwell thought he could save his restaurant by pandering to a narrow-minded crowd, but he didn't see that loyalty is the most valuable thing. We gave them time, money, memories, and they tossed it like trash. Now he's left with rubble." She glanced around Patriot Grill, where diners still clapped and raised glasses to them. "And us. We found a place that knows the worth of truth." Nicholas tilted his head, a flicker of triumph in his eyes. "I told him he picked the wrong side. I once thought Liberty Bistro was Manhattan's gem, but it was just a hollow shell under him. Patriot Grill's different. Frank and everyone here get that loyalty isn't for sale." He chuckled lightly. "And the stakes? Honestly, better." Caroline laughed loudly, the sound ringing through the warm space. "You're right, Nick, but it's not just the food. It's what we stand for. Tonight's going to be a symbol in this culture war. They wanted us to bow, but we stood tall. They wanted us quiet, but we spoke out, and the world saw it. Stand with Caroline isn't just a hashtag. It's proof truth always wins." She leaned back, eyes distant. "I don't hate Liberty Bistro, you know, I just pity them. They could have been great, but they chose wrong. The lesson's not just for Ethan Caldwell, but for anyone who thinks they can exclude others under the guise of inclusion. The fallout comes, and it's faster than they think." Nicholas nodded, his gaze gentle. "You're right. We didn't just win tonight, we left a legacy. People will remember that when you come at us, you lose. Liberty Bistro, the proof, and Patriot Grill's the new start. He raised his glass one last time, clinking it against hers. To us, Karoline, and to what we believe in. The story of Karoline Leavitt with her husband, expelled by the liberal manager, and 10 minutes later the restaurant collapses, sharply reflects the political and social polarization in the U.S. today, where values like loyalty, individual freedom, and political ideology often clash. In the tale, Karoline and Nicholas were denied service at Liberty Bistro over Karoline's political stance, mirroring real-world incidents where businesses have refused customers based on beliefs or affiliations, like debates over service refusals, at bakeries or restaurants. The restaurant's symbolic collapse within 10 minutes, with customers walking out, staff quitting, and reputation shredded online, highlights the power of public opinion and the economic fallout when businesses take controversial stands in a divided society. In contrast, Patriot Grill, welcoming them with Frank's warmth and steak, represents communities that still prize loyalty and mutual respect across differences. The real-life lesson for America here is that in a fractured society, loyalty and sincerity outweigh blind pandering to mob pressure. Ethan Caldwell chose to shield a small progressive customer group over keeping faith with Karoline and Nicholas, losing everything. This is a warning to individuals and businesses chasing short-term political trends can torch long-term bonds. Learn from Karoline. Stand firm in your values, like when she live-streamed to defend her honor rather than bowing. And like Nicholas, pick places that value you. Patriot Grill proves there are still communities that prioritize truth over ideology. In today's America, where social media amplifies every clash, build trust and stand resolute, because the Liberty Bistro's fall shows the cost of betrayal is steeper than you'd think. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow victory stories like Karoline and Nicholas's. And thank you for joining us on this journey against the injustice at Liberty Bistro. See you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring lessons of loyalty and strength in today's society.